January 2026. American power in the Muslim world is unraveling. Turkey, NATO's bridge to the east, prepares to join forces with nuclear Pakistan and oil-rich Saudi Arabia in a pact modeled after NATO itself. Analysts call it the rise of an Islamic NATO. But why would longtime United States allies risk everything to form a rival alliance? That answer begins with a series of betrayals. In January 2026, officials from Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, and Turkey confirmed that negotiations for a new military alliance are not just speculation. They have produced a draft agreement. Pakistan's Defense Production Minister Raza Hayat Haraj said on January 15th that a trilateral defense pact has been prepared and shared among all three governments. This draft is the result of nearly a year of closed-door talks following the Pakistan-Saudi bilateral defense agreement signed in September 2025. At the heart of the draft is a clause that echoes NATO's Article 5. Any attack on one member would be treated as an attack on all. Bloomberg reported on January 9th that this language is more than symbolic. It lays out a framework for mutual defense, potentially including nuclear, cyber, and conventional responses, without waiting for Western approval. The momentum behind these talks is clear. In mid-January, Turkish and Saudi naval officials held their first joint meeting in Ankara, a move that would have seemed unlikely just a few years ago. Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan has acknowledged the negotiations, though he cautions that no formal agreement has been signed yet. This careful wording reflects the stakes. Each country is weighing the risks of locking itself into a new security order while still navigating ties with Washington. Yet the existence of a draft text, confirmed by top officials, signals that distrust in old alliances has moved from private frustration to concrete action. Analysts point to this as a direct response to years of disappointment with United States security guarantees, and it sets the stage for a deeper break in the region's strategic alignment. Recep Tayyip Erdogan's relationship with Washington has been battered by three events that still shape Turkish foreign policy today. In July 2016, Erdogan survived a violent coup attempt. Within hours, he accused Fethullah Gulen, an exiled cleric living in Pennsylvania, of masterminding the plot. Ankara demanded Gulen's extradition, but the United States refused, citing lack of evidence. For Erdogan, this was more than a legal dispute. It was a question of trust. The sense of betrayal only deepened as American officials condemned the coup, but refused to hand over the man Erdogan publicly blamed for the bloodshed on Turkish streets. 3 years later, Turkey finalized the purchase of Russia's S-400 air defense system, ignoring repeated United States warnings. Washington responded by ejecting Turkey from the F-35 fighter jet program and by imposing sanctions under the Countering America's Adversaries Through Sanctions Act. Turkish officials saw this as punishment for an independent defense policy, a move that humiliated Ankara and fueled resentment toward the alliance that was supposed to guarantee its security. Meanwhile, the United States continued to arm and train the Kurdish YPG militia in northern Syria. For Turkey, the YPG is inseparable from the PKK, a group responsible for decades of insurgency inside Turkey. American officials called the partnership a tactical necessity against ISIS. For Erdogan, it was proof that Washington would prioritize its own interests, even if it meant supporting forces Turkey considers existential threats. These ruptures have pushed Erdogan to look for partners who will not question his choices or his security priorities. Tensions between Pakistan and the US reached a breaking point on May 2, 2011, when American Navy SEALs entered Abbottabad without warning and killed Osama bin Laden. For Pakistan's military, the raid was a humiliation. Proof that Washington would violate sovereignty when it suited American interests. Trust never recovered. Over the next decade, US drone strikes targeted Pakistan's tribal regions. Between 2004 and 2018, more than 430 drone strikes killed thousands, including an estimated 400 to 1,000 civilians. Each strike, authorized without Islamabad's approval, fueled anti-American anger and left Pakistani leaders questioning the value of their alliance. The situation worsened in 2018, when the Trump administration cut nearly $1 billion in military aid, accusing Pakistan of double-dealing with the Taliban. By 2021, US security assistance had dropped to a fraction of previous levels, pushing Islamabad to look for new partners. In Saudi Arabia, Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman faced his own reckoning with Washington. The murder of journalist Jamal Khashoggi inside the Saudi consulate in Istanbul in October 2018 drew global outrage. U.S. intelligence linked the killing to the crown prince, and President Biden called Saudi Arabia a pariah. Trust eroded further after September 2019, when Houthi drones and missiles struck the Abqaiq oil facility, briefly knocking out 5% of global oil supply. Riyadh expected a forceful American response. Instead, the Trump administration issued statements but took no military action. When President Biden visited in 2022 and asked for more oil, Saudi Arabia cut production by 2 million barrels per day, ignoring U.S. pressure and signaling a willingness to chart its own course. These episodes convinced both Islamabad and Riyadh that U.S. security guarantees were unreliable, setting the stage for a new alliance built on shared frustration and a desire for self-reliance. Pakistan brings a nuclear arsenal estimated at around 170 warheads, according to open-source research from organizations such as the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute and the Nuclear Threat Initiative. Its missile forces include the Shaheen and Ghori series, giving Islamabad the ability to strike regional targets across South Asia and the Gulf. Decades of military operations, from counterinsurgency to conventional warfare, have produced one of the world's largest standing armies with a population base that can support rapid mobilization. This is not a theoretical capability. Pakistan's nuclear command authority and missile deployments are well documented, and its military has been tested by conflict on multiple fronts. Saudi Arabia enters the alliance with a financial war chest that dwarfs most national budgets. The Public Investment Fund is approaching $1 trillion in assets. This sovereign wealth fund provides funding for everything from next-generation arms procurement to infrastructure and technology partnerships. Saudi oil revenues provide a steady stream of cash, ensuring that the alliance can fund advanced weapons systems, joint exercises, and rapid procurement without waiting for Western approval. The kingdom's economic leverage extends well beyond its borders, shaping energy markets and political decisions from Washington to Beijing. Turkey's contribution is technical and operational. Turkish defense exports have surged in recent years, led by the Bayraktar TB2 drone, a system that has been battle-proven in conflicts from Syria to Ukraine. Turkish shipyards are building corvette warships for Pakistan's Navy, and Ankara is developing the Kayan stealth fighter, a fifth-generation jet intended to rival Western and Russian models. Turkey's armed forces are trained to NATO standards, with command and control systems designed for interoperability. This expertise gives the alliance access to modern tactics, logistics, and a tested industrial base, all without direct reliance on United States or European suppliers. Together, the alliance combines nuclear deterrence, nearly unlimited financing, and advanced military technology. Each member covers the other's strategic weaknesses. Pakistan's arsenal, Saudi Arabia's funding, and Turkey's operational know-how form a triad that is measurable, real, and rapidly taking shape. In southern Turkey, the Incirlik Air Base stands at the center of a growing dilemma. For decades, this installation has anchored U.S. operations across the Middle East, housing an estimated 50 American B-61 nuclear bombs under strict U.S. control. Now, with Turkey drafting a mutual defense pact alongside Pakistan and Saudi Arabia, the security of these weapons and the entire U.S. posture in the region has never looked more uncertain. Turkish armed forces, numbering more than 350,000, form NATO's second-largest military. If Ankara's loyalties are tested, Washington faces the real possibility of losing rapid access to Incirlik's runways, intelligence hubs, and nuclear storage vaults. That would force the Pentagon to reroute missions, lengthen flight times, and scramble for alternatives in a region already crowded with rival powers. The shockwaves extend far beyond military logistics. Israel, long the only nuclear-armed state in the Middle East, now faces a scenario where a nuclear Pakistan could coordinate with Saudi and Turkish allies. For Jerusalem, this erodes a strategic advantage that has shaped its defense planning for generations. In South Asia, India's military watched the May 2025 Operation Sindoor crisis with alarm. A formal alliance between Islamabad and two regional heavyweights could embolden Pakistan and raise the risk of escalation in any future standoff. Iran, too, sees a hostile bloc forming on its borders, pushing Tehran to deepen ties with Russia and accelerate its own military programs. The effects reach American households as well. Saudi Arabia supplies over 10% of U.S. crude oil imports. If Riyadh chooses to flex its energy muscle in solidarity with new allies, Americans could see gasoline prices spike by up to 50 cents a gallon in the wake of any supply disruption. Turkey's control of the Bosporus Strait adds another layer of vulnerability, threatening to choke off key shipping routes if relations sour. The alliance, still in draft form, is already forcing Washington to confront a new reality. Its leverage in the region is shrinking, and the consequences could land at the gas pump, in military planning rooms, and in the calculus of every regional power. A new military bloc, armed, funded, and increasingly unified, now shapes the balance of power from Ankara to Islamabad. As old alliances fracture, global security calculations shift in real time. The next crisis in the region may not ask Washington's permission or need its help. What happens then?